today I am going to show you how to make some delicious kale chips. A lot of people are afraid of kale, not quite sure what to do with it, and I will say that these kale chips definitely get the thumbs up from my kids who really prefer not to eat anything green ever. So, super easy, only takes about 10 minutes to make. The first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 400 degrees. You're going to have one bunch of kale that just comes in bunches in the supermarket. Just buy one bunch, and you're going to tear it off the thick stalks that run down the middle into bite-sized pieces about this big, so it's like the size of a chip. So we have the whole bunch torn up in here in the salad spinner, and you want to make sure the kale leaves are really dry when you bake them in the oven so they get crispy. So you're gonna spin your kale really well to get all the water off. So once the kale is pretty dry, you're going to put it in a big bowl. This kale takes up a lot of room. And there's only a couple of ingredients. You need a little bit of olive oil. We're going to use about 1 tablespoon for the bunch of kale. 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. You can also use fresh garlic too if you have it. If you're going to use fresh garlic, it's usually about 5 to 6 cloves to the 1 tablespoon. And also a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. So first, I'm going to add a tablespoon of garlic powder and just sprinkle it around so it gets mixed in. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of olive oil. We don't want to add too much oil because then it'll make the kale chips a little soggy. So you just want just enough. And then my favorite part is the cheese. If you like a little more cheese, you can add a little more, but just know that it adds a little extra sodium and fat. So we're just going to get a little bit of a shake of salt and pepper. So you want to make sure you have nice clean hands because you're going to have to mix up the kale chips with your hands just to make sure all the oil and the cheese and the garlic powder get mixed in. So I've lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. If you don't have any, that's fine. I just find it makes it a little bit crispier. It's also easier to clean up. But once you have your baking sheet set up, you're just going to arrange the leaves on the baking sheet. They can be touching each other. You just don't want them on top of one another. So you just want to get them in a single layer. And you might need to use 2 baking sheets or do a couple of batches. They don't take very long to cook, usually about 7 to 10 minutes. You just have to watch it. Usually around the time you start to smell them means they're ready, but they can go from being nice and crisp to burned pretty quickly. So you just want to make sure you check after 7 minutes. Okay, so this is ready to go in the oven. So these kale chips are a really light, easy snack, low in calories. Kale is high in fiber. It's also very high in vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin K, folate, and it's also a good source of calcium and iron. So there's a lot of nutrients packed into kale. Like I said before, a lot of people just don't know how to cook with it. The leaves are a little tougher than spinach. Other than kale chips, some ideas are sauteing kale. If you cut the leaves into strips and saute it into a couple of tablespoons of olive oil and a couple of cloves of garlic. And just saute it until it starts to soften. Add about a 1/2 cup of water or broth to it, and then just let it simmer for a 1/2 hour, and it'll get a really good flavor and soften up. You can also throw kale leaves in smoothies and just mix it in with a smoothie. And salads, if you don't like the toughness of the kale leaves, you can blanch the leaves first, which just means to throw the leaves in a pot of boiling water for 1 minute, just to soften them up a little bit, and then rinse them in cold water right away to stop the cooking, and then you can just use it in a salad the way it is. But yeah, kale's also really easy to grow if you have your own garden. It really likes the cool weather. It's usually one of the first things you see at a farmer's market. So if you have some raised beds or pots that you can grow kale in, you can usually plant it pretty early in the season, and then again in the fall when it starts getting cool again. We've had kale in our garden grow the whole summer right into fall. So I hope you enjoy these kale chips, and we'll see you next time.